Hello everybody and welcome to the narrative instructions video. So this video will be up until the final deadline of the paper, which is midnight on the night of February the 8th. So even though the weekly videos will vanish at when the midnight strikes on Sunday night and turns into Monday morning, the weekly videos will vanish. I'm going to leave these assignment videos up until the final due date on those assignments. So the first thing you should do before you actually continue on with this video is go into the narrative folder and open up this document. You can print it up if you have a copier, or if you don't have a copier. You don't really need to watch me throughout this video, so you could just open up the Word document and have it maximized on the screen while you hear my voice in the background. So I'm going to pause for a second so you can pause the video and open and or print that document, and then come on back and we'll go through it. Okay, so hopefully you've printed up the instructions, or you've got the instructions open in front of you. Let's start with the purpose. The purpose of this video is to tell a story with a purpose. It is believed that narratives have been told throughout the history of mankind. It's believed that even before there was spoken language, perhaps the cavemen at some point actually acted out stories of what happened while they were on the hunt to bring back the meat that the village needs, or while people were on adventures, what they experienced on their adventures, they would act them out for the villages. And it served two purposes, really. One was to entertain, of course. We still watch stories, we watch movies, we watch television programs, we read books, we go online and stream Netflix, we do whatever we can to get entertainment. But the other purpose could be to educate. And so those are the two real main purposes of narration. I also chose this to be the first of the assignments because it's the easiest one. And I want us to start slowly in these writing assignments. So this is going to be the easy one, and then the next one will be a little more difficult, and then of course the research argument, of course, will require the most work. But we are now starting with something that I think will make you feel comfortable. Because if you don't feel comfortable writing, you're not going to enjoy it very much, and then you're not going to do well at it. So everybody loves to tell a little story about themselves. Some people tell us stories we don't want to hear. But the truth is, we all have something to share. So that's the purpose. So if we look at the due dates. So if you're watching this video on Tuesday, the day that I'm taping it, Monday, January the 25th, so that's 6 days from now, will be the due date. Now, if you're watching the video on Wednesday, that'll be 5 days from now. And we can go on up the list. So, submit your first draft in the Dropbox. Now, if this is your first semester in an online class, or if you're first semester in college altogether, and you don't know what I mean by submitting an assignment in the Dropbox, I have help for you. There's another module in here in this class page which says Useful D2L Handouts. If you open that Useful D2L Handouts folder, you will find that there is a document in there titled How to Submit a Paper into the D2L Dropbox. So the instructions, I've taken screenshots along the way and included them in the document. It should be pretty clear to you, if you follow those instructions, how to submit a paper properly into the Dropbox. And if you do it properly, you'll know you've done it properly because there will be an email in your D2L email saying this is your receipt, and here's your proof that you've submitted a paper into the Dropbox. Once you get that email, then I've got it. Then next week, from the 25th to 29th, so this is why it's important you get this in by the 25th. The 25th through the 29th, we're going to be doing peer review, which basically means that you're going to get 2 of your classmates' papers. You're not going to have to peer review everybody. That would just be cruel of me to make you do that. But you're going to peer review 2 of your classmates' papers, and then you're going to receive feedback from 2 of your peers, which by peers I mean your fellow classmates. So basically it'll be a paper exchange where you give each other input. Now, if you want advice on how to do peer review, if you look in the My Blank English book, you'll see that Dr. Barker has published an essay there It's really a personal narrative of his own. So you kind of get an idea of how a professional would do a personal narrative, and you will see that basically he tried to use peer review as a way to impress a really cute girl. Now I know that many of you are scattered far and wide, so it's not likely you're going to know what your peer is going to look like, and they're not likely going to know what you look like. But it's a cute little story about how Dr. Barker saw a cute girl, and he said, well, I'm going to have to exchange papers with somebody. I'll exchange it with her. And lo and behold, it turns out that she was the smartest girl in the class as well as being the cutest. So it turns out that he really had to try hard to impress her. So don't be afraid of the peer review. It's something that can help you, and it's something that can help you get to know your classmates a little bit better. Because really, this is kind of an anonymous class for the most part. Most of you will never interact with each other unless you're reading discussion postings, which are possible as the semester goes through. So that'll be the week of the 25th through 29th. Also during that week, I will give you some input as well. So look for my comments, and I'll probably do it after you've already received the comments from your friends. So don't look for my comments till towards the end of the week. I want to see what you all have to say to each other. And make sure that everybody's being polite with their input, and make sure that nobody's being rude to each other or anything like that. All right. And then you'll have a week after that, so until February the 8th, so really more than a week, probably closer to like 10 days, to take the input that you've received from me and from your peers and make it a much better narrative that will get a good grade. All right, so the learning outcomes I'm going to let you read on your own. Here's the assignment itself. Pick a significant. Notice I put significant in all caps. Significant event in your life and write a narrative about it. So, for example, if you were driving to work this morning, let's say you're doing these classes in the evening. If you were driving to work this morning and some yuts cut you off and then had the nerve to hang you the middle finger, even though they were the one that was driving badly, but there was no accident, there was no contact with cars. That person then stepped on the accelerator and kept going, and you went your own way, cursing under your breath. That's not a significant event. That's over with in 30 seconds, and then probably by the time tomorrow arrives, you will have forgotten all about it. So, by significant event, I mean something that might have been life-changing. Now, some of you may be saying, but Mr. Smith, I'm only 18 years old. Nothing's happened to me yet. But there could be plenty that's happened to you. Think back to events in your life that you say, wow, that made a difference. Some of you may have been in sports, and so you got to the state championship game in high school. Some of you may have been cheated on by a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or maybe you did cheat and lost somebody special. It could be possible that you had to battle a serious illness, or it could be possible that any number of things could have happened. Your life has not been lived in a vacuum, and there have been some significant events that have affected you. So pick something significant, something that you maybe learned a lesson from. In fact, use that as your gauge. What did you learn? When you tell this narrative, what did you learn from that experience? And when you tell me what that experience was, then we can maybe get that from you as well. Now, you can refer to pages 1 through 5 of the Darden State College Readings for Freshman Composition, which is the chapter that I wrote. If you look in the beginning of the of your two textbooks, your My Blank English book and your Darden Readings for Freshman Composition, you'll see that aside from the professional essays that are in the readings, because obviously I didn't write anything by Langston Hughes or write anything by Mark Twain, but if you read that chapter on the narrative, that's the one that I wrote. And so definitely pay close attention to that, because if your teacher wrote that chapter, there's a pretty darn good case for the fact that you might want to follow those instructions, because that's what your teacher's looking for. So that, and then of course pages 99 through 103 of the My Blank English book. These will give you guidelines on what will make a really good personal narrative essay. And we'll talk about that when we get to the very end of this document a little bit. Write only about an event that you feel comfortable sharing with those of us that you're going to spend the rest of the semester with. Please bear in mind that anything that should be spoken to your therapist should be spoken to your therapist. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit as well. But don't use this paper as a way to get therapy. Now, writing can be very therapeutic. It's one of the reasons why I enjoy writing so much. But I would not write about something that I'm going through at the moment. We'll talk about that again in a minute. All right. So about 250 to 300 words in length. That should be about 5 good paragraphs in MLA format. And that gets me to the rubric. There is a document in the MLA formatting folder. In fact, you should probably go through that folder and look at a lot of this stuff. But there is one that says how to format your paper in MLA format. Now, that may not be the exact title, but there's a paper in there that will show you the instructions on how to make sure your paper is properly spaced. Make sure you have the proper font, to make sure that you have the header done correctly. I will be grading you on all of that. 6 points out of the 100 on this paper are, did you follow the directions in that, how to, I think it's called how to set up a MLA format template is what it's called. Did you follow those instructions? If I get a paper with the wrong font, the wrong spacing, with extra space between the paragraphs and no header, you're going to lose a whole lot of points. There's going to be 6 points probably taken off just on that alone. So, that MLA formatting, and you see I've got it all here. The margin's 1 inch all the way around. That should be the default. If you try to widen the margins to make me think that you wrote more than you did, I've been teaching too long to fall for that trick. There's a proper font, 12-point Times New Roman. The header formatted correctly. The spacing, double space with no extra space between there. So those are the 6 points I'm going to be looking for in that part of the rubric. Grammar and spelling. Notice what is in all bold and in red font. If I reach 30 grammatical errors, then I will give this essay back to you and say, you need to fix this. Now, we have spent 2 weeks, or by the time you write this essay, you should have spent 2 weeks going through some grammar exercises through chompchomp.com that I've set up through our D2L page. So you should know what subject-verb agreement is now. You should know how to use commas properly. Those exercises are good, but to do this in practice is even more educational than those exercises. So I would say, I think there's 25 people in this class. I would say probably around 17 or 18 of you will make 30 errors and get this essay back, at which time you will be asked to make those corrections, and you'll be given a deadline to give those corrections. And once you make those corrections, I'll go through and see if you've corrected them properly, and then I will give you a higher grade. So don't get discouraged if your first paper comes back with an F because you had 30 errors. I will give you an opportunity to fix those errors, and then you will be able to fix them and turn the paper back in for a higher grade. So, this is not an easy class. It's easy to get frustrated in this class. So please don't get frustrated and say, oh, I give up because I got 30 grammatical errors on my first paper. No, go in there and fix those errors and then resubmit the paper, because that will be a learning experience for you. Just like when you were learning how to ride a bicycle. If you just jumped on a bike and rode it around and you were done, there was no learning experience there. But if you fell off the bike and scraped your knee a few times and got back on it and eventually learned how to ride, you became a better bike rider for it. So, same thing with writing. You're going to probably fall down and skin your knee a little bit during the writing process, but you'll have a chance to get back on that bicycle and fix it. And there's a listing of the errors here. And you should know what most of these are. Spelling, we've talked about run-ons, fragments, we've talked about agreements, we've talked about commas and apostrophes and things like that. So, that is part of your rubric as well, is those errors. And then the quality of the narrative itself, and that'll be 63 points. And the first thing is the subject matter appropriate? And I put that in there because I once had a young lady write to me about how special it was the night that she lost her virginity. I'm not sure how many of you are already married. I'm not sure how many of you are older students. I'm not sure how many of you are fresh out of high school. I'm not real sure how many of you are saving yourselves for marriage. But the point of the fact is that I really do not need to know what happened the night that you lost your virginity. Is it a significant moment in your life? Yes, everybody remembers that night very distinctly. But it is not appropriate subject matter for the paper. So I would then give you an F and demand that you write me a different narrative that would get you a higher grade. All right. The next thing, do you engage the reader in which way which we can empathize with you? In other words, sympathy is when you say, oh, poor thing. Empathy is when you say, yeah, I've been there, I can do that. So try and shoot for the empathy, not the sympathy. Is your story believable? If you write me a paper about the time that you went on a vacation to Mars, it's not likely I'm going to believe that. There is a creative writing class that every now and then I get to teach it, but usually Ulf Kirchdorfer teaches that class. If you want to do creative writing, then sign up for Dr. Kirchdorfer's class once you're done with English 1102. I think you'll find that it's a very rewarding experience. Creative writing is a lot of fun. I've done some of it myself. Is your story focused? All right, or does your narrative wander? This goes to one of my points in that chapter that I'm going to have you read out of the reading for composition. Your narrative should take place in as little amount of time as possible. Your narrative, I would like to see you try to confine it to a single day. I do not need to know everything that happened from the time you were in kindergarten until the time you graduated high school. I don't even need to know everything that happened the senior year of your high school year, from September or August all the way into May. I don't need that stuff, and I don't want all of that stuff. I want one significant event, and that event should, for the most part, take place in a single day. Now, there could be some prologue leading up to the event. You know, ever since I was 8 years old, I always wanted to do this, and finally, ever since I was 8 years old, I've always wanted to go skydiving. And then when I turned 17, I finally got to go skydiving. And then, bam, you're telling me about skydiving. So that's fine. At the end, there might be a little bit of epilogue. So after that first experience, I enjoyed skydiving so much that I've been 10 times since. Boom, that's fine. That's a little bit of epilogue. But that prologue and epilogue should be very brief, and we should get right to the moment. That's where this focused thing comes in. Stay focused on that event. Also, does your narrative wander? So don't give me a whole bunch of little asides. Oh yeah, before I tell you this, I need to tell you this, blah, blah, blah. You know, give me quick exposition, bam, you're into the narrative. Tell me the story as if you were telling it to somebody that was sitting in front of you. And you don't want to wander, and you don't want me yawning through it. So stay focused. Does the chronology of your story make sense? If there's a flashback in your story, it has to be a reasonably useful flashback. And it should be very brief, and then you're back on again. Most of these narratives should take place from the beginning of the time the event happens all the way to the end. And then what lesson did you learn from the experience? So in the end, say, because of this, I learned blank, whatever it is. You know, because of this car accident, I learned not to change lanes without checking my mirrors, or whatever it was you did that caused the accident. So, what was the lesson you learned from it? And I'll be looking at all of those things as I grade your essay and think about what grades to put on it. So, that's the personal narrative assignment. Refer back to this video if you need some further clarification. If you need even further clarification, feel free to call me during my office hours, or feel free to drop by my office if you're in Albany, or feel free to shoot me an email. And I'll be happy to help you with that. Some of you may be saying, can I send you a draft to look at before I get a grade on it? Yes, it is built into the schedule. So if you send me a draft, you'll put it in the Dropbox. If an email attachment, I'll just delete. And I'll tell you this needs to go in the Dropbox. But you will get input from me as well as 2 of your peers. So you'll have that. Then after that, if you want input, then you'll need email attachments. But for now, the first input I want to give you is the input that I give you in the Dropbox on your first draft, and the one that your peers review for you. So that's it. Feel free to have fun with this assignment. I want you to enjoy this assignment, but take it seriously as well, because you will get a grade on it. But we don't need to be stodgy and take it too seriously. So with that in mind, I hope you enjoy telling about some significant event in your life, and I look forward to reading these drafts.